Hey, welcome back to Dealer Confidential, where we're pulling the curtain back again on dealership transactions. Great to be with Greg and Joe today. We got an interesting show. This is all about I'm a musical guy. This is like the Clash, right? Should I stay or should I go? If I stay, it will be trouble. If I go, it will be double. It's just don't worry. I'm not going to break into more song. This is all about the factors that guys go through, dealers go through. Should they stay in the store and ride it out, or is it time to hang it up and go? And these are personal decisions, they're complex, and we want to just explore that subject. And Joe's done this a time or two. Greg and I have been around a few of these ourselves. Let's get started.
Yeah. And you know how this is interesting. I don't have a letter today from the kids. I don't have an email. But Monday's class was exactly on this point. And that's why you and I recommended, and Joe recommended that we do this one. Because these kids are saying, do I bail on this thing that I've known my whole life for 18 or 19 or 20 years and just get out and try something new? Or do I stick it out even though I feel that maybe I'm not really ready for it or prepared for it? And it's a dilemma. And I think the kids represent dealers, prospective dealers, and just the general clientele that's out there. Do I stay or do I go? What's the problems? What's the advantages? So it's going to be a good show.
Yeah, I had a guy a couple years back now. He was 43 years old. He was making about $1 million in a small rural store. And I said, what's the problem? You're 43 years old. You're making $1 million a year. Another 20 years, you'll have $20 million. He just said, I've been doing this for 30 years. I said, so you started when you were 13? Yes, I worked in the parts department for my dad. He
Yep.
said, Hal, you don't understand. I didn't pick this business. The
Right.
business picked me.
Yep.
Right. And now dad has passed away. Granddaddy's passed away. And he wanted to do something else.
Yep.
And he unplugged, and the EV thing was hot and heavy with Ford at the time. And, he said, I'm tired. I want out. I want to do my thing. So it does become, it's financial, it's emotional. Sometimes it's rational. Sometimes it's market driven. Sometimes it's factory driven, because the factory had a big piece of this guy's decision to exit. He wasn't on the same page at that time with Ford and the direction of the EV program. So, sometimes, and Joe, please jump in. Sometimes, you get an offer, you weren't for sale. Now you are.
It's an amazing example that you give, because that is consequently so much of what's out there, right? It's second, third generation. A lot of times the children, whoever they may be, one or two or three, wind up with the business, and that's what you grew up in. And by default, guy wanted to be an artist or a musician or whatever the case may be, and winds up being a car guy. So I find that in my career, and speaking to so many dealers and so many people and manufacturers, I found, this is my personal take, I find that the two most largest reasons that someone is thinking of, should I go or should I stay, is one, there's somebody offering them, there's the whispers of that he could sell the facility and the business for a nice chunk of money, right? So, like you said, somebody's tapping on the shoulder, hey, one of the publics is really being aggressive. They're going to pay multiples like you're never going to see, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
You can keep the real estate, all those gyrations, right? So that's usually one large one. The second one I find is when the marriage between the dealer principal and the manufacturer starts to really deteriorate, because that puts just an enormous amount of pressure on so many different facets, that it interrupts business, it interrupts income, interrupts personnel, future planning, it's without a doubt. So it starts to put a lot of cloud and on top of the individual, and they start to say, hey, I see a storm in the horizon. Maybe it's time for me to run for shelter. So to me, those two are usually the largest two drivers. There's many more. We can spend 3 hours on this podcast.
Right. Oh yeah.
It's such a lengthy and emotional subject. But the reality is, I find that those two are the first two to sort of start the process, and then many others fall in between.
Yeah.
I've seen it, and I speak personally because I've been in a situation where I've had multiple stores, and I'm working fantastic with 3 manufacturers. The stores are doing okay, typical daily problems that, of the business, but nothing that's going to be difficult. But we progress, we move, and then you have that 4th manufacturer that it's not a good date. It didn't go well, and you're there, and you're trying, and and it's just not working out. And so, then that's and sometimes from that, a person says, well, I'm going to sell that store, and then they say, well, let me buy the other 3. I'll give you a nice number for those. So then,
yeah,
this is how the stair-step process happens. You didn't ask for the other 3. You were kind of not thinking about it, but because the 4th one's a problem,
right?
So now that indicates an opportunity for the other people to say, let me knock on his door for the other 3 because I like these other 3 stores. So
yeah,
again, and then the third component is of that behind all of these is the emotional. I work for guys myself that built businesses with multiple magnificent stores, built a giant business. They're like this huge father figure in the business world in that particular area, and they feel obligated emotionally to the people because those people help him or her or them build that business, and so there's an allegiance there. There's an emotional allegiance. So that also becomes really. I've seen some big deals fall apart because of that. Because of the the buyer is not going to do the right thing for the employees, and he found out, and they're not going to do the deal. I mean, it's the emotions just run so crazy. Again, we could be out here for 3 hours talking about it, but it's
Hey, let's talk about the distressed store. Joe, you brought it up. The manufacturer, you don't like the cars. The manufacturer is difficult. The store, the property isn't right. It never was a good store for you. Half of that may have been because of the market. Half of it may have been because of the manufacturer's attitude. But it's still a viable property. And I think, Hal, we've been talking about this for weeks, months now, that even though it may be the orphan stepchild and you're not in love with that store, it's sellable. Someone will buy that store. And you have to be very careful not to let slip through the financial statements, the maintenance, the employees, all of this other stuff, because you're going to be scrambling at the end, if at all, to sell the store. So even though it may be an orphan to you and you may not be in love with that, whatever store it is, you've still got to maintain it, especially if your vision is either to sell the 3 or 4 stores at a group or to sell that one orphan off. You still got to maintain it, right, Hal?
No question. I mean, I've had guys that own 3 or 4 that are really well, and then one that's the tax write-off store, right? This is the they got everything into tax return, and that one is the tax write-off store. They don't put the resources in. The best people are not there. They don't go see the store. The inventory is not right. The bad used cars go to that store. It's kind of like the redheaded stepchild, or I use that description, but that store is like, it's valuable, right?
Yeah.
If it's, you got to take care of all your kids, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because if you ever do want to sell, there's going to be, price to pay, right?
Yeah.
And you never know too. Here's the other thing, Joe sometimes a life stage trigger will happen. You go see the doctor, you get an unfavorable scan. Now you've got a health issue, right? And you got to take care of yourself. And these things are, there's a lot of pressure running these things. I mean, like you say, you come in, there's 50 people that are counting on you every day. And that weighs on you. And if you've got health challenges, you want to take care of yourself. Sometimes that precipitates a sale as well.
Hey, let me share with you what I'm living right now. And Hal, I mentioned it to you the other day. I have a franchise. I have a buyer. I have a seller. And this seller has, similar to what you said, Joe, multiple franchises. And this one franchise is a prestigious brand. But as you just said, Hal, he dumped everything into that financial statement. He took his 2 or 3 other stores, put all the management team into that store. He put all the advertising into that store. He did everything. Now we're in deep trouble because I cannot, I'm sorry, I cannot make ends meet. What do you?
Yeah. Well, it's gonna come back to value and price, right? You're not going to get what you could have gotten if the store had been taken care of, right? And I've had to do that here recently on a couple. We sold them, but not for what they could have been.
Yeah.
Right?
And Joe, I think you lived through the same thing we just talked about.
Yeah, without a doubt, without a doubt. And this is where, again, to both your points, the emotional component that becomes have to be. Listen, the emotions are going to be there, no matter how you slice it, good and bad or indifferent. But that's the time to be ultra pragmatic, and say, look, and I'm the king of analogies. I dated this girl, I really liked her, but she can't cook. She doesn't get along with my mother. It's just that, I brought her over a couple times for Easter, and it just didn't work out, right? So it's time to move on. So it's kind of, a funny analogy, but it's conceptually the same, right? You have this store, and there's always a reason why an owner keeps a store. Either he likes a piece of real estate, he loves the building that he built. It's the best location of all the other stores on the highway. You emotionally start to come up with all the reasons why you shouldn't sell, or you think you shouldn't sell. When in reality, when you put it on paper and pragmatically you take the emotion out of it and say, look, this relationship is not a good one compared to the others that I have. It's affecting the business. I'm also doing the wrong things by, to Greg's point, dumping all my bad cars in here, and my best personnel is certainly not here, and so forth. So the reality is it's time to move that store, because you're going to get the best dollar value at that point. If you let it go, it's just going to sink further, and and the word gets out too, right? I mean, people talk and they see the performance of the store. So now in the car world, everybody knows, oh yeah, that's a great location, but I don't know what he's doing with that store, hear it all the time. So unfortunately, guys wait, and then then they knock on our doors and like, you got to help me out. You got to get me out of this. You got to figure something out, right? So I think slicing that emotional component out, be pragmatic, be focused. Same way you're focused on the other good business. Look at this one the same way. And if it's not for you, it's okay. Move on. It's time to let it go, because it starts to interfere. I'll tell you, I know I won't give the name, but there was a situation very similar to what we're talking about. There was an owner who had a store. He had multiple stores, but he loved the store. But it was not performing because he wasn't paying attention. He didn't have, again, the best people, etc. But when he wound up selling that store and finally getting rid of it, the other stores flourished because he was able to not worry about this stepchild. He refocused on the good stores further and enhanced business further, and business flourished even better.
Yeah.
This is where, again, being pragmatic, you got to look at what can be. If I do this, what will happen next? I think this is going to have a positive outcome. Yeah. So again, get rid of the emotion, because it's so hard to allow you to think clearly to make the best move for you,
And how, like we've been saying for months, is get your house in order now, even though your store's not for sale. You don't have a buyer. You're not sure what you're going to do. You haven't set up to trust you. Get your store in order, because as I just said 2 minutes ago, we've been living it. It's going to be too late when that LOI comes through and that buyer wants to buy that store and the financials just don't make any sense at all. So,
and Joe made a good call us. We'll give you a third party, independent, straight answer, high integrity. We're going to keep everything confidential, and we'll help you ask the questions that you're asking yourself and provide some perspective, without the emotion, right? We'll help you. We'll give you the catalyst for you to make the best decision, right? Yeah. Because we've been there and we've done it, and it'll always be your decision. We're not going to make your decision. We're just going to help you get to the right decision. That's all.
And me and Greg experienced this, actually. Me and Greg were actually engaged. Greg was helping me buy a store out in Pennsylvania. Fantastic store, fantastic location. The store had, one time was doing well. Then the owner ultra expanded and kind of, forgot about the store. And what happened, me and Greg had everything perfectly done. Manufacturer approval. We had everything done. Township, you name it. We had one problem: floor plan. Why? because he had led the financials sink so much that no matter what me and Greg did, we knock on between our relations, we know everybody and everybody knows how, who I am and the great performer and all that. And it didn't matter. They kept saying, Joe, it's hard. It's almost difficult to give you a floor plan because the financials are just horrific. Right. And to Greg's point, he was doing the same thing. He was dismissing the store, padding the expenses, and all you're doing is you're just destroying yourself by doing something like that. So again, the quicker you can look at that and be honest with yourself that for whatever reason that this is not going to work out, the faster you can do it, the better it is, and the better dollar opportunity you're going to get. Because to this particular scenario, me and Greg had to pass on the deal. We had no choice because we couldn't get floor plan because of that circumstance. And he wound up selling the store later for peanuts. I mean, compared to what he was asking originally, not that he was wrong in his asking, but he just couldn't get it because he just let it go too far. So,
yeah. Hey, shameless plug. Like we said in 2-3 episodes ago, things are changing from a positive standpoint. Tax season, guys are looking at their statements, everything. So we have now a number of really good dealerships that are available. And we're surprised, all three of us are surprised at the quality of store that's coming available. And as Hal offered, if you're thinking about getting in the market, if you're thinking about buying or selling, give us a call. We'll steer you through the preliminaries and see if it's viable for you. If it's not viable, we're going to tell you because we don't want to waste your time and our time. And we sure as hell don't want to waste anybody's money. So things are starting to change. Joe and I are looking at some other properties right now, and it's a good time. Spring is a good time, and the economy, even though it's a little crazy for the next couple of weeks, it's going to be fine after that. And I think anybody who starts to move now is going to have a huge benefit.
Well, and you got to just make your own luck, right? I mean, the world's not going to stop turning because of uncertainty. So we're in the car business, guys. I mean, we get up every day and make it happen, right? So to Greg's point, there's some whitewater, geopolitical, whatever, interest rates. We'll make it happen.
Yeah.
We'll make it happen.
I think what's important for the public to know about us three, what we bring to the table is something a little different than your standard quote unquote broker outfit. A lot of these guys have gotten so big that they're sitting in the office and they certainly know the business. They know the semantics. They can look at a financial statement and make analysis. What we bring to the table is that we're still talking daily to I'm still an operator. We're in the trenches with people. So we have a really good pulse of what's going on per brand, per location. And that brings a different level of service to people that we really, because sometimes in the deals, you throw a curveball that nobody was thinking about because we're operators and we see what's coming and you say, did you consider this? Oh my God. What about that? So I think that's what we bring to the table and everybody out there, why we do this podcast, why we put the information out there, because we bring a real hands-on approach that's very different than anybody out there.
Yeah, good point. It's not just the price either. We're talking about terms, how to get deals done, how to get all the stakeholders happy. The real estate and the strategies around lease or buy or seller notes and earnouts and all those things all those little levers, all those little gears that spin the medium-sized gears that spin the big gears. We've been inside the machine. Yeah. We know how the thing works.
And the application process, which if you decide that you want to go through, a lot of the big outfits don't do that. They're like, they think your accountant or your CFO is going to do it, but many accountants or CFOs have absolutely no idea what it comes to that.
Right.
So
again,
we bring that expertise. That's one of the services we provide.
Yeah.
Me and Greg have done it many times. Hal, you've done it many times. And,
Sure.
We can take the application from beginning to end with a marketing strategy, a marketing proposal for the manufacturer.
Right.
Again, all these things that a lot of them don't have or again, don't understand.
You want the right level of volume to get the sales and profit forecast approved, but not enough to where you have to write bigger checks for working capital, right? So there's a really fine line between enough and too much on the sales and profit forecast.
I just got to comment what Joe just said. It's so true. Question your lawyer, question your accountant. How many packages have they put together? I mean, real packages. I'm not talking about an LOI or a contract. I'm talking about how many applications have they done? How many times have they sat in front of a committee at the OEM and walked through what you plan to do new and different about that store? How many times have they done that? If the answer is few to none, then you're with the wrong people. Okay. And that will jeopardize your buy. That will jeopardize your sell. So ask those questions. And oh yeah, my father had this lawyer. He's a family lawyer. He's helped us through everything. Well, how many car dealerships has he sold, and how many applications has he done successfully? We have those lawyers. We have those accountants. And please get in touch with us. All three of us. Get in touch with us as soon as you can. And, go dealerconfidentialpodcast.com. Get on the website, log in, register with us. We'll be glad to answer, no charge, of course, any questions that you may have. If we get deep into the deal, then we'll talk about things that we can do for you or can't do for you. There's not a lot we can't do unless it's a deal that we don't want to do. That comes to, we had a couple of those recently.
Sure.
We may have to pass on certain deals. So please, dealerconfidentialpodcast.com. Give us a call, give us an email, become one of our chosen people that we follow. You follow us, and let's see if we can put some deals together this spring.
Absolutely. This great conversation. I'm going to go tune into some more Clash and ask myself, should I stay or should I go?
Well, I think that's the question we're asking ourselves right now. We're at 24 minutes. Should
we probably ought to go.
Or should we go? Joe, anything in closing?
No, I think, like I said, this subject matter can go on for hours because there's so much to cover the gamut. But I think we just gave the small structure of the things to really consider. As I said in the beginning, the two things that I find that are usually the numerators that start down to the denominators. So again, like you said, this is it's a dicey subject. We're here to help. Please reach out to us because we can guide you. It's a quick conversation. It doesn't matter. Pick up the phone, email, and we can really help people out there for sure.
Oh, hey, Hal, last shameless plug. We still have Dealer Advantage as one of our sponsors. It's on our website. We've been getting a lot of interest in that from advertisers, automotive type of advertisers. If they could participate in the website, maybe come on as a special guest or do the promos that we've been doing. And the answer is absolutely yes. We love to have new sponsors, new advertisers, new marketers. Go to our website again, log in, tell us that you like to promote your product on the podcast, and we'll see what we do next. So please do that because we're getting a lot of interest now, which is fun. We're going to 2 million automotive experts every week.
Good deal. You got to take some cough syrup.
I think I have to go.
It's your sign that you got to go, unfortunately.
Okay.
We'll see you next time, guys. Joe,
All right,
have a good one. Thanks, Greg.
Thank you.
See ya.
Thank you, folks.